Please be aware that this episode of Poets Corner or the Let's Be Happy podcast contains strong language.
Hello and welcome to Poets Corner or the Let's Be Happy podcast. And it's with me, Rosamund Gravel.
Hello, I'm Delphina, and today with us is
Shaun Blaney.
Shaun Blaney. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, guys. Thank you.
And if you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself, Shaun, it'd be wonderful for our audiences.
Certainly. So I've been a professional actor for about 16 years. I did an academic degree in Queen's University in drama, and didn't actually realize that I wanted to be an actor until I fell in love with drama during the drama degree. I took it on as a side module for English and then just dumped English and jumped ship. I've very much learnt on the job in Belfast, Northern Ireland, because the theatre community in Belfast is just so giving and generous, and they adopt you and they train you up as if you're on a building site. Really, you just learn from different actors, different directors, getting little bits of information, copying people, where to stand, what to say, how to say it, and you just build up over the years working on mostly new writing. There's quite a big new writing scene in Belfast, and we're always pushing new work all the time. So I did that for about 10 years in Belfast, and then me and my wife Emma moved to London about 7 years ago and pursued acting in London. And I try and be as versatile as I can be, so I like to do a little bit of everything. So I did children's theatre for a long time, and I've done panto and short films and web series and TV. I just try and take the best of everything and keep adding to a palette that I think if I'm a little bit more versatile and spread myself a little bit more broad, that you're never out of work for too long. So I try to do a wee bit of everything, and then I suppose in the last 7 years I've put an emphasis on my writing and tried to get my writing better and better all the time, because I really enjoy losing myself in writing things and telling stories. So I'm about to do a play called Death as a Post in London, and that's the first time I'm actually going to perform something I've written, which is a wee bit scary. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
That's really interesting. How do you find sort of, it's a very interesting kind of, like, you had the English and then you went to the drama and then you're sort of making a circle back into the writing, I guess. Was that a conscious thing, or it's just that in a wonderful way they've kind of really fused into this place for you at the moment? And
yeah, I think it's kind of like I like to approach everything with a kind of beginner's mindset. So even if I know I can do a play and I know how to do the play, I like to walk in with the new director going, I'm a blank slate. So I think that's kind of where the writing started for me. I was making short films with a collaborator, writer director in Belfast called Aidan Largy, and we just used to run and gun short films all the time. We wouldn't ask permission. We would just have 2, 3, 7 pages, and we'd run out and film it if somebody was free. And I did 4 or 5 of his shorts and thought, oh, like, he's churning these out, I could write some. So I started writing short films, and I really do enjoy that short form storytelling with a beginning, middle, and an end in about 7 or 8 pages. I find that quite manageable. And then over the years, just I've been working on developing projects with people that I really enjoy working with. So writing this play came about from just feeling ready to take on a bigger writing project and not really being able to see where my start, middle, and end was, and change how I approached like a long version of a story. It was something that I was quite passionate about. And I think in the same for everybody, lockdown, I just started writing. I just thought that was a good use of my time because I couldn't perform. It was the only thing that could stop acting and people performing in front of each other was a virus where you can't even be in the same room. So I focused on writing during that and listened to a lot of podcasts on writing. And um, I actually became a script editor, script analysis for a film festival as well. I did that for free for a while just to read as many scripts as I could. And after a while, just wrote down what I liked, what I thought other people were doing.
No, that's really fascinating how you got into the writing. Do you feel it's as physical as the acting? So I know that we've chatted privately before, and I know that you're quite a physical actor. Do you find that with your writing, because it can be quite a cerebral internal process?
I find when other people read my writing, I get much more nervous than if I'm standing on stage in front of 1,000 people. It's a it's a very vulnerable thing to show what's inside your head and how you breathe life into characters to other people. I think is absolutely nerve-wracking. The more people that work on something I've written, like a short film or a play, the more people involved, the less nervous I feel because it takes a village and everybody gets involved and you feel like it's a collaboration. But if it's just something I've written, especially if it's something quite personal, on the first table read, I'm terrified. In a way that I don't feel in theater and TV anymore. I feel adrenaline, but I don't feel scared. Um, but yeah, writing is it's so nerve-wracking. I don't know how you do it all the time.
That's interesting because you are saying that you feel more observed, let's say, when you are actually showing something related to your writing, but not when you are on stage. Is that correct?
100%. I think when you're on stage, maybe in a one-man show, is quite vulnerable. And I got an acting note. There was a book I was reading on acting once that said you don't need to perform confidence on stage because the act of walking out in front of 500 people is a confident one. And everybody in the audience is already looking at you going, oh, look at him standing there. So there's a lot of there's a lot of work you don't have to do on a stage that I think just standing there does for you. But there is a vulnerability in just standing there. But you can use that in your performance. Whereas the vulnerability in writing and going, read this, I hope it's not rubbish, is different. And you've worked so hard on it by yourself for a long time, usually, that when you start to show it to other people, um, I find it a very vulnerable act. And then when other people comment on it and help you change things and you might get some notes on it, I go, okay, now it's part of a village and now I'm not so worried about it. But initially terrified.
That's really interesting. And what about this new project that we or you were talking about a few minutes ago about you performing a play that you have written? Because you,
So yes, yeah, this is my most nerve-wracking piece I've ever written. Because it deals with not just I have high frequency deafness, so I have two hearing aids, and I have full hearing in my lows and my mids, which is like bassy sounds, the volume of things. But my high frequency just has completely disappeared. So that's the clarity of people's voices. Consonants in when people are talking, the T's and the D's become muddy for me. And female voices are very difficult for me to hear. I can, unless somebody is talking from their diaphragm, it's very difficult. And female voices tend to be of a higher frequency, and children tend to be of a higher frequency. So that's where I struggle. Um, and my entire family has hearing aids. So I'm the youngest of five. My mum is the eldest of 11, and they all have families, and everyone in that big Irish family has hearing aids and hearing loss. So deafness is pervasive through my mum's side of the family, and our sense of humor about that is very dark and very cutting. So to write about my experience of deafness, but also to make fun of it was very scary to me until we did a Zoom read with a couple of creatives, and there was some deaf interpreters, BSL signers there, and they started laughing when the hearing people weren't laughing, and it immediately made me feel better. I was like, okay, yes, this is making you feel included, and that's what I wanted. But it was terrifying just putting that dark humor about my deafness out into the world. Um, so that is, I'm playing the same character in it, and the other two performers in it are multi-rolling the whole time. I'm playing a whole host of different characters, and the starting idea was to make a hearing audience feel partially deaf. So I did that with the dialogue. So sometimes when characters are talking to the main character, they talk in riddles and rhymes, and it forces a hearing audience to try and work it out afterwards, like I would have to if I was in a coffee shop. So it should be hard work for a hearing audience. And then to make it all more palatable, I set it in a post-apocalyptic war zone with zombies in it. So I don't know how it's gonna go. I have no idea. But I just didn't want it to be a kitchen sink drama. I wanted it to be active and playful and silly as much as possible.
It sounds really, really interesting. And where's it playing on at?
It's playing in the Barons Court Theatre from the 9th to the 20th of April. And we've got a donations page, but I'll type that later on. And I'll go, oh, go here for donations if you can.
That's fantastic. And how are you preparing for this? From what I've seen or read, you have a hobby that is playing guitar and bass.
I love playing it. I love a bit of music as well. So the music's quite important to me in it. We have a sound designer called Garth McConaughey, who we did an R&D with, who is working with us on creating a soundscape for the environment, and also something that could convey what my ears and the sound of my hearing aids feel like. So every time you put your hearing aids in, they boot up and there's a jingle. And it's something only you can hear. When you turn them up, the volume goes like you hear we bleep, 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 bleep when you turn them up. So we're trying to give that to the audience every time I put them in and out in the play, and play with the frequency of the room. So everybody else's voices we want to make sound tinny and high pitched. But the music for it was very important to me because I grew up with music. So like we're playing about with the idea of Daft Punk's One More Time and stuff, and any song that has pardon or sorry or one more time in it that I feel like I have to say all the time. Really disappointing because my guitar is currently all packed up and I haven't played it in about 2 months. I haven't had time to play it. I'm missing
Oh,
it.
no. So would you say that music is not just a hobby or something that it could function as a way out, but you actually use music for your play? Is that correct?
Yes. I think music is like any of the best plays I've ever done, music has been integral to them because it just has a beautiful way of bypassing logic and going straight to your heart. And I love when a piece isn't prescriptive. It's kind of there's a little bit of distance between it and the subject matter. You're not telling people how to feel, but you're just helping them feel something akin to what you want them to feel. Just I'm currently in post production for a short film that I shot last year. I helped a couple of students from London shoot a short film in Belfast, and the soundtrack has been the stuff of debate in it because we need stuff that sounds a little bit dangerous. It's two girls in a car and a horrible drug dealer, and they're driving around at night time. So it's pulsing and it's in a minor key, but there has to be moments where love blossoms. And what point do you bring the music in? And um, I'm a big heavy metal fan. So I was like, we need heavy metal music in this. They're like, no, no, we need something much more happy hardcore. And you just completely change the piece with the right music. Like the right music elevates it. So whatever piece I'm doing, I also write with music in my ears because I feel it helps gives the dialogue a rhythm, but it also puts me in the right mood to write a certain scene. Um, So yeah, and any of the best plays I've ever done have had a banging soundtrack, like a really, really a soundtrack that felt woven with the theme. And so I'm a big believer in like whatever you make, the music has to be on point.
I think it's really, really interesting. And now that you mention about movies and projects, you have been involved in quite a few projects outside of the UK, right?
Yep.
A few times. And how is that? How was that experience or experiences for you?
So myself and a friend made Aidan Largy again. He's an amazing director. We created a web series that was set in Belfast, and it was a crime drama. And we were in our mid 20s, so it was everything we wanted to be. It was run about with guns and renegade cops playing by their own rules and stuff. It was very close to our hearts, and that actually it did really well on the RTE iPlayer, which is like BBC Player, did really well online, but it did even better in America. So we find that when we went to America with this Irish crime drama, that we were welcomed into every room. So at one point we were in the offices of HBO and Hulu, and they were talking about what we wanted to do next. And there was just this, I think, art and creativity, although it was monetized over there, it was all about, yes, of course we can do that, and then how much money do you need? Whereas I find in Ireland and in the UK, it feels a little bit more like you're asking permission to do something creative all the time, and you always have to go out with your begging bowl. Whereas in America, it was, yeah, of course. Well, they asked us what our budget was, and they thought our budget was 1 million, and our budget was 20 grand. And they're going, I can't understand how you made that for 20 grand, but also why did you have to? And that blew my mind. So it was just this. There's certain parts of the world that just accept that art is life and necessary and feed it. And I really wish that parts of Ireland and the UK felt the same way about it, because we always seem to get cut here rather than supported. So yeah, I think my trip outside was eye opening in a kind of how the rest of the world sees the importance of what we do for a living.
No, no, absolutely. I remember I learned to sing, and I was talking with my singing teacher, and she was an opera singer at that point. She's gone into conducting now, but she was out in Vienna, and she was like, I don't feel like I have to apologize for being what I am. People see it as a job, and you produce and create, and it's respected. And whereas sort of here in, I think, UK a lot, it's like you have to say, I am working. It is work. We are apologizing a lot about it, or maybe not being seen as integral and as important.
Well, yeah, and like I think the big test in Belfast is if you can get the black taxi drivers to talk about it. So there's a whole heap of taxi drivers that do the tours around Belfast, and if you can get them talking about your play, like they enjoyed it, and they always say things like, "I don't go to theater all the time, but I really enjoyed this." If you can show people that a night in the theater is not above them, it's for them, and there's nothing that's too fancy, there's nothing that's too intellectual for you. I think you can slowly change people's opinions, but at the end of the day, there's always something about forever fighting that kind of argument that the money could be better spent somewhere else. And you're trying to convince people that £1 into the arts generates £3 for society and all that. But you go, when you were locked down in your house and you had nothing else to do, what did you do? You read a book, you watched Netflix, you listened to music. Like
Yeah.
it's integral. It's as important as a loaf of bread.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And just like creative life, and we know that there's been cuts not only in the arts, but obviously in drama and things, but in music in schools in the UK. And as you said, it's sort of an integral thing that as human beings, and I think also as animals, in the animal kingdom, you express yourself. There's plumage on birds and bird song and all this stuff, and it's an integral part of creation, I think, of of living.
I know it sounds really, maybe it sounds a wee bit wanky, but like sorry, I'm not allowed to use that word. Use it all the time. If I go to the pub with a mate, all we do is tell stories and jokes. Like that's all you do when you're sitting with your friend in the pub and you're like, please give me your story. You'll never guess what happened today. And it's got a natural start, middle, and end to it. And it's funny. And you go, yes, yeah, this is what we do in our spare time. So I think we should donate more money to making our spare time incredible. I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course. And then we have our smartphones, and we are all the time scrolling down in order for us to look for stories. You know, people on Instagram sharing content all the time, videos, funny stuff, or a lot of actors and actresses are doing stuff there, creating content, and it's really, really good with a lot of followers, and it functions as a Netflix. And today we are how many hours, hours do we spend on our smartphone? A lot of
Yeah.
time.
I do think like those very short TikTok videos are an art form in themselves. You know, like people, they've fast edits and they've got a joke at the end and a twist, and like they might seem like like popcorn kind of entertainment, but even to do one is quite difficult. And to shoot it well and light it well and have a funny joke at the end of it, I think it's amazing. And I know that I missed the boat on that. Like I am not good at that short of a story.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. No, kind of also just want to say, like, I remember somebody telling me that, an artist has created everything that we see. Obviously different artists, not just one, but like everything that we use, everything that we, as you said, consume as wanting to know about stories or music is all being created by artists. Everything that we
Hmm.
use every day is someone's vision and someone's inner world come out to life. And yeah, you're right, it is really, really, really super important, and super important people find it within themselves as well. It's an added dimension to yourself if you can, I think.
I think it's
Yeah.
like that was something about Deaf as a Post that I wanted to do because as much as I wanted to let people feel my how I perceive the world and through my ears anyway, that it's about communication. Like the whole play is about communication. So the zombies in it are called loopers, and they are stuck on one idea, and all they can do is shout that idea at someone else. And it was supposed to be a comment on like our social media. You're in your bubble, you hear something, you get attached to it, and you just scream it at another person, and there's no middle ground. There's no conversation, there's no nuance, there's just right and wrong, left and right, up and down. So that's what the zombies became. They just became speakers essentially, and they turn each other crazy by shouting sound bites and Daily Mail headlines at each other. And the main fella is the hero only because he's half deaf and he can't hear it. So he becomes like this. His deafness becomes a weapon that he can utilize, but it's something that has made him feel isolated his whole life. So it's trying to turn that isolation into a setting, a very dangerous setting, but also a superpower towards the end. Um, but that idea that we just don't talk to each other anymore, and how many different ways can we communicate within one play? So we're communicating with body language and BSL and screaming at each other and captions and rolling about. So it's how many different ways can we communicate in the one play became quite important. And I think that's something really looking forward to examining in rehearsals because you can only do so much on the page before you start prescribing and overwriting. But there's other things that will emerge in the room. You go, you don't need to say that monologue. That monologue you can do with a wink. Let's cut it.
I wanted to ask you, and I think it's related to this, if has been a project or a character that you as an artist, as an actor, you consider that has transformed you as a person?
Yeah, that's a really good question. There's two things that I've worked on that I think have really changed either the way I think about stuff or the way I create stuff. One was a physical theater comedy piece about depression, and it was called The Man Who Falls to Pieces. And I played a character called John who was falling apart because he was depressed. So literally, he had to staple himself back together and use sellotape and cling film. But we didn't use any of that on stage. So I had to, became evident in rehearsals, I had to physically embody what falling apart might be like. But it was actually more about keeping yourself together than it was about falling apart and just showing a physical struggle in your body the whole time whilst having naturalistic conversations with people. But the director of that was called Patrick J. O'Reilly. He is phenomenal. I love working with him. He's very, very playful. So the idea of making art through play became cemented for me in that show. Everything should be three laughs and one cry. Silliness is amazing, and having a rehearsal room that is very playful and doesn't take itself too seriously creates some lovely stuff. Um, and he said, "Can you curse in the website in the podcast?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, he gave me a note that'll stay with me forever. Before we went on stage on the first night, we were so happy with what we had done, and the soundtrack to this show was incredible. It was all custom-made pop music by a pop star from Northern Ireland called Katie Richardson. She made this incredible soundtrack to it. And we were about to walk out on stage, and the director turned around and said, "Fuck them if they don't like it." And I approach everything with that. Now, it's very liberating when you don't write to please anybody else, or you don't act to please anybody else, but you act in the most generous way possible to include them, but you don't worry about the reception of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was one, and then the one man show that I'm currently doing, um, it's called In the Name of the Sun, and it is based on the real life story of Jerry Conlon, who I think the last time his story was told was in The Name of the Father. Daniel Day-Lewis was in the movie, and that covered 15 years that he was wrongfully imprisoned for an IRA bomb that he didn't have any part in. He was wrongfully imprisoned. Uh, Play, on the other hand, charts his life from when he got out to the end of his life, which is infinitely crazier and is just a mad story about a man who was deeply traumatized by those 15 years, given £1 million and turned into a celebrity. And of course, he went off the rails. And then he had a fight to bring himself back to some kind of form of normality before he died. But that play, it taught me an awful lot about just being honest on stage, like just telling the truth. You're enough. Just stand there and say the words because the audience do half the work for you as well in their own brains and their own imagination. So don't worry so much about controlling everything. The director, Tony Devlin, is amazing. He got a phenomenal performance out of me, kicking me around the room. It was great. We worked very well together. But that was the first time I felt the weight of something very important. This is a real man's story. His family are still alive. He is a local hero, and he meant so much to so many people that I felt, pardon me, the responsibility to do that well. And I enjoyed that responsibility. So I now, it gave me an appreciation of the responsibility I think you should feel to every play, to every project. Somebody's going to see it. You're going to maybe brighten someone's day or change someone's mind. So they're the two pieces I think so far. I've got a feeling Death as a Post is going to do something for me. I don't know what yet, but they're the two pieces that really stick out as having changed how I work or how I think about working.
I've got the feeling too, because it is you are doing it as from a really personal space.
Yeah.
From what you said. So
Yeah. it's funny. It started off as a joke, 5 pages of a script and a wee joke that we did at a scratch night. We did a scratch at Barnes Court, and people started laughing. I was like, "Oh, this actually means something to me." I'd kind of like to stretch it out. It's gone through so many different drafts, and I haven't been precious about the drafts. So even the genre of it's changed 3 or 4 times. I've probably binned more pages than I've kept. So yeah, it'd be very interesting to see. I think you have to go through like a love hate thing with it, and at the minute I'm like, oh, I don't like it at all. And I think once I get back in the rehearsal room, I'll start to love it again. But yeah, I'm very ready to kill the writer and let the actor take over.
Well, talking about loving things, when we were doing our pre-prep, I mentioned to Delphina that you had been in Game of Thrones, and Delphina got very excited.
Yeah. Who my wife was directing Death as Opposed. She's just finished rewatching Game of Thrones from start to finish again, just to have on in the background, and it's very good TV. It's awesome.
Did you enjoy your time on it?
Oh, I really did. It that taught me a lot as well because I have 5 days on it, and in those 5 days they custom made me some armor, and I got a sword, and they custom made me a wig, and I was brought in for fittings, and you feel like, oh my God, I'm really in Game of Thrones, but they do that for everybody. So it's the scale of the operation was unbelievable. We spent one entire day shooting the short scene that I was in, and close-ups and mid-shots. And at one point, there was a big HBO camera in my face, and I thought, "This is it. I'm all over Game of Thrones." And then the shot they ended up using, I was standing behind the tallest man in the room, and I just poked my head out at the end and go, "Oh, please don't kill me!" And that's it. Like it's blink and you miss me. But it was an entire day crying my eyes out in chainmail that was made for me. So I think it was just like if I could go back, I would tell the younger me to milk it and fall to your knees and make sure you get a close up used in it. I would definitely say that. But at the day, I was like, oh, I don't need to fall to my knees. It feels like I'm over egging this. I don't need to do that. I would totally do it now. But it was amazing to be there and seeing how all those actors work and how little they do and how much they do and like how they conduct themselves on set in a set that had hundreds of people on it, just hundreds. It was amazing.
Were
And
you
go
able?
outside and all the blacksmiths making armor and swords. You go, this look how many people have a job here. It's incredible.
Sorry to interrupt you. Were you? I was intrigued to know. Were you able to keep your bespoke chainmail?
Not, I wasn't allowed to keep anything. Not
Oh.
even a lock of my own wig. Nothing. I
Oh.
think because it all ends up going in and gets recycled and comes out in season 4 and season 5. Like it just there's not that much waste in the costume department. Um, but yeah, I should have stole something. I had a wee dagger and I was so close to stealing it, but
We're glad that you didn't, so that's good.
But it might has been a different, quite a different experience because it's a really big production, right?
Mm.
I don't know if you did something like that before, because from what we can see, there are a lot of people involved and a lot of stuff going on, a lot of things going on. And yeah, as you said, a lot of people working, and it was probably a different environment from you were used to.
Oh yeah, because I feel like everything I'd worked on up until that point, I felt like I was integral in some way to it. Like some play, some short film. If you take me out, you put another actor in, no bother. But like the work I was doing was a big chunk of the pie, and that was the first thing. That and I think Halo. I was in a Halo movie, and even Frankenstein Chronicles. Even though I had a wee bit more time on it, I was a Slither of a slither of a piece of a pie. Like you are just a cog in something massive. And it's about doing your bit whenever the camera comes past you, you do your bit and you pass it on. And I'm sure for some of the main characters, they have time to get their feet under the table and feel it out and perform. Whereas I very much felt like don't bugger it up when the camera comes past you. Do your bit, pass it on. So it's very, very interesting. I think it's a skill in itself to work on something that big and be a day player. But I find there's a size of project that I feel at home in, and it's much smaller than that. Where you feel like your opinion and your input is going towards the whole, and you feel a wee bit more ownership over things, but you probably work on it for half the time for a fraction of the money, but it just feels more rewarding. I think so. Yeah, there's some short film sets and the web series that I worked on. I think in terms of television, that web series I worked on is the one where I felt most at home, that I was doing something that I really enjoyed. Uh, Still fun to see 1,000 people make a TV show, but it's just different.
Talking of which, I know that you've gone into the production side of things as well with your wife, with your new production company. Is that right?
Yes, we've started a theater, and well, we're going to branch into short films and stuff as well. But we call it Dandelion Productions. We just started that at the start of the year. So Death as a Post is our first play, our first rehearsed reading, and we just finished a short film as well called Slow. It's coming out of post production. So they're the first two things, and we'll see where we go. We are working with some very, very talented writers. Rosamund Gravel, she's an incredible writer. We'll see if we can get some of this stuff off the ground. But yeah, it's very much like we're falling forward at the minute, but we're going to try and build and build and build and see if we can just at least make some really good stuff in the next while.
Well, let us know your projects, especially potentially that one with Rosamund Gravel. She may have a vested interest in promoting it on this podcast, but
I mean, the first draft of the script was fantastic, so I see.
I'm sure tell people what's going on.
Well done, Rose.
Thank you. That wasn't planned, audience. That was like a completely natural thing. I didn't pay Shaun.
I don't know. I'm not aware, but I couldn't say anything. Okay. Do you have any other question, Rose? I think we have kept Shaun for a lot of time. He probably wants to go.
You're all good. You're all good.
We're all good. I think, yep, I'm all good. It's been a real pleasure to chat with you, Shaun, and thank you very much for joining us. And we obviously had Emma on here, so we're really glad that we could have you, and we'll be looking out for all your projects, and let us know, and hopefully we'll have you back, even, well, both of you back on at some point as well in the future, to let us know how all things are going.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, we'll give you a shout about Death as a Post if anybody would like to come. It's on at the Barons Court, 7:30 in the evenings from 9th until the 20th of April. And it stars Victoria Johnson and Nuala McGowan and myself, and will be directed by M. Copeland, and it will be madness. Donations are on Indiegogo. If you search Dandelion and Death as a Post, you'll find us on Indiegogo, and we'd just love to see as many people there as possible. Come and see the zombie apocalypse and see what it's like to be deaf.
No, it's great. We'll put that all that information on our Instagram and our social media channels and our website, and that gets up and running for all our listeners to access that information.
Are you or the production company or the play on Instagram, so people who are listening to us right now can go and look for you there? Yes,
100%. Dandelion is on Instagram at Dandelion Productions _. At Dandelion Productions _. And we try and put a little bit of content up every day, but all the information on Death as a Post will be there. And we'll be promoting the short film Slow shortly as well, which is just coming out of the edit.
Thank you so much for joining us, Shaun.
Cheers, really appreciate it. Thanks for the chat. It's great.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you for spending your time with us here in Poets Corner or the Let's Be Happy podcast. This has been another episode, and thank you everyone for being there listening to us. Thank you, Ross. It has been an honor.
And thank you, Delphina. As always, it's an honor. And thank you, Shaun. And goodbye, everybody, and see you next episode.